Now, hello everyone. Good, good day, good afternoon. Today we are going to work on probably a couple of small-scale, not too deep issues in CockroachDB source code, but nonetheless important. So I'm expecting we're going to go through multiple different issues subsequently. The first one we're going to look at is this PR that was sent by a member of our community. Either, yes, so it's a Google Summer of Code participant in previous years, someone living in Bangalore, India, and who wants to help us with an issue we had about a wrong error type reported when someone passes some wrong string through SQL. Now, the issue what we have here is a case where the software, the CockroachDB source code, is responding with an error of high severity for a case that has, in fact, low severity in practice. And so what we want to do, the essence of that change is to change the, so that's what the external contributor did with their change. Change the type of error from an assertion failure to a regular input error with some fields. Now, I was reviewing this and I thought this is kind of okay. We had a little discussion, and I think that the general structure of that change is okay. But there is something that is triggering me a little bit, and I'm going to show it to you. What is happening in this change is that the user is working, this contributor is working to change the type of error, but we have still here a call to something called errors.save. Now, errors.save is an API which we want to eliminate through CockroachDB source code. And there are multiple reasons for this, but generally it's because it is error prone and it has an extremely high risk to leak sensitive data out of CockroachDB source code. So in this particular case here, the risk is not very high because this piece of code is very well contained and there is high confidence that it's not doing anything wrong. But it's really about setting standards, like creating an engineering culture. We don't really want to continue having deprecated or obsolete interface, especially dangerous interfaces, even in the places where they are innocuous. We want to reduce the frequency of their use over time so that we can show to newcomers to the source space that we're doing due diligence to remove usage of the obsolete APIs. And so when I came to this PR, I saw this external contributor making a change that was meaningful for the issues that this person was assigned to, but without consideration for removing that API. So on the one hand, I am willing to concede to that external contributors that it was not their concern to change API usage for something that is not directly linked to the issues that they're working on. And therefore, it is unfair of me to require of them that they would look at something that is on the surface unrelated to the change that they needed to make. Now, that being said, we also have another standard in this code base, which is that when someone is making an improvement to one area, we invite them to also consider if there are low-hanging fruits and opportunities to improve the same code area in other ways than the ones that they're directly working on. And the motivation for this incentive is the idea that once someone has worked in a given area of the code, they have loaded in their brain some knowledge and context about how the code works, and that puts them at that precise moment in a very good spot to make meaningful changes that improve quality and readability and other variables around the code that they're working on. So that's what we were looking at here. There is a change that should be done around this code to avoid using the unsafe interface. And that is here let me switch away from my buffer. That is what I'm trying to work on by accompanying this external contributor with their code change. Let me show it to you by removing the calls to errors.save and replacing them by some other API instead. So let me commit this briefly, and I'm going to show you now the diff. Oops, git log patch minus n1. All right, it's the diff that I'm working on to add on top of the external contributors change. So that person was working on this particular line and was still keeping the errors.save, and I want to make those calls to errors.save go away. And so what I am suggesting to do, and so like you see here, I'm doing actually this change on top of their change. So the idea I'm trying to work with here is that this is an external contributor who is not familiar with many of our interfaces and APIs and so on. And so even though our code standards would require me as a reviewer to invite that user to make adjacent related code changes and improvements as part of their PR, because this is someone who has not contributed CockroachDB before and is a newcomer, I'm not going to put a burden on them to learn a bit many other things that are not part of their contribution. And so what I'm doing instead is keeping their commit and their PR open in their name, and I'm going to add a commit on top of theirs to do the additional changes that I'm suggesting. And so that will have two different benefits, I hope. One will be potentially to teach this person what I was meaning when I first reacted in the review with, why don't we try to eliminate those calls? This way, if they are interested to contribute in the future CockroachDB again, they will know something that they didn't before today. And the other thing is that later on, when I will approach other coworkers with suggestions, maybe you can make an improvement in that area because it is time for us to improve that. I can then point them to this PR as an example of how to do it. I just noticed that I created a typo. Let's match Sentinel here. And so this PR here will actually provide maybe a template for others to follow in other areas of the code. So what I did here, I removed the call to errors.save by introducing a savePretty method that is somewhere else. That is returning a save string. Well, that is actually returning a reductible string. So here I'm making an assumption. So this string method in the new API should probably not exist as is, but we use that go generate stringer method to automatically generate string methods. So the string method in this particular case happens to be returning only save strings. And so in this particular case, we add this savePretty field that is going to return a reductible string. And so I probably need this cast is safe because the string method is generated by the stringer. And then the other things I've done next to it is for a couple of the other data structures in that package, I changed the implementation of the string method, which was previously using string concatenation and returning it, by using the save format method abstraction, which does the same work but using the save printer interface. And that has an effect that if values of this type now get embedded in an error payload or log message and so on, we will now be able to embark their value directly without a need for the errors.save. And so as a result, I'm able here to change errors.savePretty by call to savePretty. And then in another place, we can replace a call to errors.save by passing the value of the thing directly, because now that is going to have a save format method. So that's what we are doing in this additional commit, and that should be sufficient. Now, unfortunately, after I made this change, the test for that package started failing, and I'm going to show you how. I got here a message that says field year is not wanted in bracket instead of field year is not wanted in 0. So from my own knowledge of this package, I will say the test expecting wanted in 0 was actually wrong. So that, like, it is not meaningful for the end user to see a message containing wanted in 0, because the value 0 doesn't represent anything meaningful. The value that is passed into the error message string is the name of, say, date format. So we are in a date parsing module. So what we are seeing here is a representation of the fields that is desired as part of the format for the date. Like if you say, I'm parsing with year, month, day, and then the string passed by the user is something like 2000, and then a time, this error message will kick in and say, well, I'm not expecting a time at a position where I'm expecting a day or a month. So that's what this message is about. So what we want here is a representation of what's wanted. And so an error message that says not wanted in 0 doesn't make really any kind of sense to the end user. And so the test is failing by saying, well, instead I'm seeing a bracket in the error message. Now, what this is telling me is that the original test was wrong. And now the new message generated here is also not exactly helpful, because the user doesn't exactly know what to do with empty brackets. So now we have here a situation where a test was broken, and the change to the code helped me detect that the test was broken. So we need to fix the test. And in order to fix the test, we need to find out what would be a valuable counter example for the error message. Like, what would be a good way to reflect the problem of extracting a date out of the string, for example, and shows that in an error message. Now, I actually don't remember how this package was developed exactly. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to compile CockroachDB and see what the original issue as filed on GitHub is going to tell me with my change. And based on that potential failure in the original issue, I will get an intuition about how this error message reflects an error by the user. All right, and now we're talking. So the error message before was field year is not wanted in 4088. There is no occurrence of 4088 in this string. This was like a mistaken embedding of a data type cast into another data type. So this entire message was just completely useless originally. And now here we're showing something absolutely interesting, which is that as part of parsing a timestamp, we are expecting this structure, and a field year is not expected. I'm a little bit surprised, so because I don't understand why a year is presented here. But I think what's happening is that when there is a character that is not an era or number, and all those things here need to be numbers first, then the parsing code might go and understand this or try to understand it as a year. That is kind of surprising to me, but at least it gives me a little bit information about why this message here is just brackets. And the reason is that this test here should actually tell the parser what field is expected at that point. And so we are going to indicate here what field is expected. All right. No, that is not all right. I'm expecting a representation of the fields. Okay, so let's go and investigate how this message is generated. Not wanted. Field year is not wanted in. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do printf debugging. Well, I could even panic probably. And now I'm getting a panic here. So what it's telling me is that the value minus 4524, which I believe is related somehow to this value of no, is not expected. So that is okay. But the question could be, why is field year expected? That is odd, because the time fields don't expect, the value pass here doesn't imply that a year is expected. So I see Rail on the chat saying hello, and I would like to thank you for being there, and hello to you back. So why is do we see a year being extracted here? So I think we are going to go and look at this. So field setter Julian day. So what is a Julian day to date? If a value starts with the letter J, we are looking at Julian date. That is what it is. So is that also what we have here? Yes, look at this. There is a J going on here. All right, so now that explains it. And now we have a understanding of what's going on. Okay, so that's actually a very interesting issue, and the PR by this external contributor is actually not that useful, because there is another bug going on here. So let me explain this bug. It's super interesting. So I'm going to explain it first, a little bit of context. This parsing code is made a little bit complicated because it's supposed to work a little bit like Postgres. Postgres has a very extensive understanding of dates with a very flexible parsing logic. And so CockroachDB is doing its best to do something that resembles what Postgres does, and therefore some of the complexity in Postgres also exists in CockroachDB. Now, part of that complexity is that the parser is doing really a lot of effort to find bits of a date in an arbitrary order in a date. And so in other languages or libraries, often the code that is parsing a date or a time is going to tell the parser the specific order of fields that are expected. Like you can say, I'm going to expect a date that starts with a years and months and day, or I'm going to expect a date that starts with a days and months and year. And then those two different parsers are separate and incompatible with each other. So if you pass a date with an invalid format to the wrong parsers, and you get an error. And that is what usual parsing goes. Like the rule of the ordering is specified by the program in the parser upfront before the data is given. The Postgres date parsing, however, works very differently. It says, well, I'm expecting a year, a month, and a day, but maybe in some different orders that needs to be kept flexible. Like the parser should accept them maybe in a different order. The only thing that is going to be checked is that the data passed by the client doesn't contain more pieces of information than we need to construct the output. For example, if the program, like a function in SQL, expects a date with just a day, month, and year information, it's okay that it gets the years, the months, and the day in a different order, but if it sees time, then it should report an error that is not expecting a time in the context of a date parsing. The other way around, if we're expecting just a time, then it's not okay to be provided a date. And so we have some logic which says, well, for any given context, we have a list of things that we expect. Not with a particular order, but nevertheless, like a set of things we expect. And if something is observed to not be within that set, we report an error that is not expected. And that is actually what that error in the test is about. Like, on the right side of the error message, we're expecting a list of things that are accepted, which is actually what I saw here. If I'm parsing a time zone, then I want all those fields to be presented. Or, I mean, some of them might be optional, but like, if there is a field that is not part of that set, then it's not valid in that context. And that's okay. Like, we're working on the time zone function, and it's only taking an offset from GMT or the name of a time zone. It's certainly not accepting a year. Like, time zones are not expressed as a number of years or a number of months. So it's not extremely surprising that if the parser finds a year, it should report there is a problem. Now, that being said, why does it even try to parse a year, given that those strings here have no structures that resemble a year? So the reason is that we have a J here going on, and that J, for some reason, is triggering the date parsing. And so that's kind of surprising, because we are looking here at a default case. Basically, if none of the other parsing rules for the current parsing formats apply, we fall in this default case, which is parsing a Julian date and then trying to stuff it in the output. And so what we see in this code is this case. This error message and the test case that we are looking at here is triggering this default case to be reached, even though the fields don't require a date. And so there is one thing to be considered, and that is the shape of the error message that we are going to fix anyway. But then the second thing I would consider is, why do we even reach this case if the desired format does not require a date, a year? And so here, I think I'm going to work with two different layers of changes. One layer will be fix the error message here so that we have something a bit more comprehensive between those brackets that will make the test case surely stronger. And then separately, we're going to look into this call to field setter Julian date to see if that is good to have there when we are processing, for example, just a time zone. Because arguably the better failure we would like to see is when this message could not parse. That is a much better and informative message than failure is not wanted in blah blah blah. Because if the user places this string here, they would prefer to see a message says, well, this doesn't look like a timestamp or a time zone. That would be much more useful than this message. Like, what is a user supposed to even understand from this? Nothing. It doesn't make sense. And so we are going to look at this in that way. So first of all, fix this message here. So what I want here is to enhance this test to see a better thing in between the brackets. So what I would like to see, not wanted. I want to see the wanted field, and so it's not required, it's wanted. So let's see, where is wanted? Is wanted here. All right. And now this test is failing. Oh, let's remove this panic. This test is now failing much more clearly in the original way. So if we want a time with hour, minute, second, blah, 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 and we are presented with a year, which is the case in this test because this is a Julian date. Then it's completely okay to see that we are expecting fields and we don't get the right fields. That's like basic feature here. We can fix that. All right. So this way we are going to fix the test. All right. So that's from my previous change. And now here, we're going to fix this test. And that is a test that that is a separate commit. Yeah, so Rel posted a link on the chat about falsehoods programmers believe about time. It's an extremely nice blog post or article, and it comes in a collection that contains more of this kind of falsehood. And I like the one about time, but my favorite by far is the one about names. Falsehoods programmers believe about people's names. That has so many more surprising entries to it. So now we have another test. Oh, is that a commit that the original contributor was changing? Yes, they did introduce this. Okay. All right. So yeah, no one needs more than first and last name. Well, talk to me about it. I have things to say about this. Yes. All right. What do we do about this? We are going to rebase because I want to change. Want to change the commit message about something I wrote earlier. And so here is the error messages reported when an invalid time, date, or timestamp, when a string is converted to timestamp and the string contains invalid entries, no more clearly reports which fields are missing or excessive or undesired. Cast to print out if I wanted as an integer instead of a list of fields. All right, so that's actually a bug fix. All right, and now there is a discussion to be had about that Julian date. Oh, what did I do here? Hispanic doesn't belong here. What did I do? What did I do? Field extract. Oh. Okay, so I need to remove this panic from the second commit. So we have this magic commit instant fix up. Off we go. All right. And now the last part is, do we like this Julian here? So that's the thing that I'm really not too happy about it. Why would this code attempt to parse a Julian date if no Julian year, month, or day are expected? So what we see here is that there is already some condition in the remainder of this parsing code for if we don't expect a year, month, or whatever, then we have a separate error. And so I think that it would be fair game to not attempt to parse a Julian date if there is no expectation of a date inside the current field extractor. So we have year, month, and day. So if one of the year, months, or days not expected, we might not want to report anything. And so in order to clarify what we want to have as a behavior here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to compare what Postgres does with what CockroachDB does. Okay, first of all, what is a time zone function about? All right, time zone, string. Even converts a given timestamp with time zone to a new time zone. All right. All right. So that's great. So this is the common case. And so what we saw earlier is that if we have an error could not parse field 4510. That is another thing that's completely odd. Why 4510? 10? That makes no sense to me. So that's another problem we're going to go and investigate. Going to make notes. And the other thing we saw was here, maybe? No, that was not this one. That worked. Okay, so what do I have here? Timestamp. Let's try again. Okay. Okay. That worked. Ah. Here we are. So if I have 2 Julian years, one after the other, this is conflicting information, and the parser is rightfully telling us that the year field has already been parsed. That's what this message is about. All right, so I'm going to ignore this previous error message for a second, because that's kind of confusing and we need to fix that later. But this one here is now clear. So what's going on here is that if there are 2 different dates, one after the other, yeah. If we have October 10, maybe, yeah, okay, that's interpreted as a year. Okay, cool, interesting. So field month is not wanted in this. So here it's okay to find a date. I don't know exactly what it wants to see, but at least we are starting to see something going on here. And that is that a Julian date is providing fields, year, month, and day in excess of what the remainder of the string already provides. So that's what this error is about. Now, that is a kind of an issue, because we probably need to improve the structure of that error message. We actually want to tell the user what are the fields. So it's not wanted in, but that's not exactly. Field year, already present or not wanted in. And then we are going to have here a hint, a detail. All right, let's compile. Sorry. Made a mistake. It's not the way to work. Cool. But not so cool. All right. Build. So that's build not safe ready. And here we need to pass them by the reference because they implement the safe format method by reference by references. There we go. And now if I have two Julian dates side by side, I will say parsing at times failure, already present or not wanted, wanted blah blah blah, already present blah blah blah. And so what we're missing, let's see. Okay. So that means that we can say I don't actually know how those Julian dates work. Something like this. Better. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. Now we're talking. Now this message makes sense, and we will need to change this unit test because this is now a different way that this message is generated. So we're going to get there in a second. And then the other thing that was bothering us was this other case could not parse fields. Could not parse field chunk, and chunk is a number chunk. All right, and number chunk is something like this. A number chunk implements the value All right. We're going to get there in a minute, but I do need a minute for a bathroom break. I will be back in a second. All right, we are back on stream. And so we were confused about this other message. What was it? This one? No. What was the case again? Oh, if there is a Julian date after the date. Could not parse fields. Cool. All right, so that is again a Julian date situation. There is a number, which is a Julian date, and then there is a interpret number confusion. So if this is a Julian date, we probably need to represent this chunk differently. So let's first see where this is panicking. All right. So extract. First time step extract. Okay. So field extract 257. So where is this numbers computed? All right, and number chunk. $45.10. That's really a strange number. What is this number? Where is this kind of number coming from? And number. Oh, okay. So if the append is failing, we are going to go through here, and then we see this here going on. Then we have this leftover field, and then interpret numbers. All right. So how many of these numbers do we have available? Maybe I should create a unit test for this, shouldn't I? Oh. All right, now we're talking. All right. So the numbers we have are a space with 10. So what was the number we entered actually in the input? 20, 10, 10, 10, J 123. Cool. So these are the numbers we have. And so the thing that comes afterwards is chunk. Oh, with separator 45, E10. Oh. 45 is a letter J. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, what's going on is this. This separator character, it's a rune. It's printed with a V. It causes it to be printed as a number, but we really want to print it as a character. I think that is what is happening. And so what we want to see is J10. I think. J10. So actually, what's confusing is that it parses all these numbers. Oh, it says the days, the months, and then it doesn't. Oh, look at this. Now I understand what's going on. Okay, so now I can explain what's going on. Oh, it's scanning. It's really scanning. So what's going on is the following. Say parser works in two phases. It goes through all the string, and then it constructs number chunks for each of the numbers found here. So it parses this number, and then this number, and then this number. It doesn't yet know what to do with them. It doesn't know whether they're times or days or months or whatever. So it just keeps them around. But then when it finds a J followed by a number, it presumes certainly that this J is a Julian date. And so after having put aside those numbers and not doing anything with them, it actually is very certain that this is a date. And so it starts storing day month, and year values from this number. And so after the point where all these numbers have been collected and this thing here has been parsed, the month, day, and year are known already. And so in the phase that come afterwards, it will go through all the numbers that have been accumulated but not yet interpreted. And that includes those three numbers here. And then it tries to do something with them. And what it says to us with this message is that when it encounters this standalone 10 here, after having found a month already, it doesn't know what to do with it because it already has a month from this part. That is clear. And now we are going, first of all, to see a little bit how this message works and remove the panic. And we're going to add a little bit more context around that input error. Minus 10. Yes. So this minus we had here is here. So that actually is a change from my second commit, which I need to fix. Instant fix up here. And then here we will have a with detail in the other thing. So interpret numbers. Input error. So what I'm doing right now is annotate all the error objects. Hi, Jordan. Nice to see you on the stream. I'm not fixing it. I'm fixing the generation of error messages so that the user who observes an error as a result of an invalid date will have better understanding of the cause of the error. That was triggered by a PR by an external contributor who discovered a code path that was handled as an assertion error, but then after fixing the assertion error, the result of the error message was still extremely confusing. And so by having that change, we are going to clarify a little bit what's going on when an invalid date is entered. Let's try this. The branch is called fixed date parsing because the external contributor sent a PR with that branch name, and when I make a copy of an external contributor branch name, I use their branch name on my local copy. So here was an example of confusing, like, this is a date and could not parse field, blah, blah, blah. Bleh, what kind of field is that? So let's see what it says now for this case. -10. All right, wanted already present. So what it's telling us here is slightly better. The -10 is being interpreted as part of either era, nanos, or meridian, and already present is telling us this. And so I will say already present. Already found. So the reason is that this J thing is really odd. Let's see a little bit what Postgres has to say about this. Yeah, well, I'm okay with that as well. Cool. Okay, so what we did here is just enhance the error messages with additional context. And now let's see what the test suite is telling us about this. So that's the previous fix we had. All right, but this entire test here, it's not super nice to maintain over time because it doesn't really show the new fields we had. And so I'm not actually too much happy about this here. I would say yeah, the chunking, well, it's not completely bad either, right? What I would really like is to have something like data-driven testing. But it's really too much work for today. And I will say here... Do we have a time stamp field set? Date fields, time required. Is there some other fields for timestamp fields? TZ fields. No. Date time fields, I like that. Add all. Oh, okay. Well, that's an easy one. All right. So let's maybe change this test a little bit to have something slightly better. I want something. How do you create a time value with particular combination of date, month, year? Do we have that? Manual time? No. Huh? Okay, I will get to that in a bit. Date. Okay. Field set. All right, enjoy your coffee. And then we're going to populate our error here in a second. And now we are going to look at the errors API to see how to extract the detail, get flattened details. Oh. Okay. And now we are going to check this. Mm-hmm. Cool. I think that will be better. Oh, except that it wants to have copy of errors. I don't know why I'm not getting automatic imports. It's complicated. Better. Cool. And now we are going to have additional fields. Not an error, yes. Oops. Come on. Oh, that is surprising and problematic. If I have two different fields that are repeated, why is there no error in that case? That is surprising. I'm expecting an error when the, oh, look at this. The test was always using this. That's not good. All right. That's better. Cool. Cool. Okay, so that's what we wanted. In this case, we expect only a time reject a year. Expect a date reject a year when all right. And now we're talking. And now our test case is properly highlighting how our decoration is working. So in this case, we have twice. It already found year, month, day, and then it's seeing a second time, and then it doesn't know what to do with this value. So it's not the best error message we can imagine, but it's already better than what we had before. And then we are going to do this. Enhance, add more context to date parsing errors. Single change the error payload. Return to the client when a date time conversion fails. No contains slightly more details about the difference between the values provided and the values that are expected. Cool. And now we have a couple of commits on top of the external contributors. So let's push to their branch and explain to the external contributor what hi Kumar, I looked at the PR again and we are going to keep your changes. The CI failure is not your responsibility. I will look into it. Additionally, you will notice that I have added some commits to your branch on top of your change. The goal of this commit is to generally improve error generation in that area of the code. I hope you don't mind, and I hope you get a chance to learn from my additions. Cheers. All right. No waiting for CI success before merging. There we go. Probably need to do the Bazel generate thing just in case, because I think I have added dependencies that were not there before. Come on. Yeah, I did find stuff. Why do I not get my my change to show? Oh, it does show up here. Okay, so what did I add? Errors. And that was in my last commit. So break, push. Off we go. All right. Yay! We added some bug fixes in the process of reviewing an external contributor PR. All right. It's well, it was a good deed. It was a good deed. As a reminder, how I started with this, I was like, well, probably the best way to do this, if this was a team member, would be to push a team member to try to investigate if there were other low-hanging fruits and improvements in that area of the code. Because if someone goes through the hassle of learning about some area of the code, they become in a good position to actually make other quality improvements in that area. But because this is an external contributor, I don't feel empowered to require them to do additional homework on addition to their work that they already were willing to give us. And so instead of asking them to do it, I actually did that additional work. And I learned a few things. I learned about, for example, what Julian date looks like, which I didn't know before today. Well, I heard about them, but I didn't know what they were. All right, so that was that. And is that maggot? Yes, that is absolutely maggot. It's absolutely maggot, which I cannot do without. Okay, see you, Jordan. See you later. And now we are going to switch over probably to a different issue. So there is this project with a lot of to-do work, insane amount. But I did see some thing that I thought would be good to bash because they are low-hanging fruits. Okay, so the first one is this PR, which I created a bit more than a week ago. It's currently draft because it's missing a unit test. So I'm going to explain it a little bit. There is a bug. So if the user is passing their connection string as part of an environment variable to the SQL command, then they get a panic with a weird error referring to a command that they did not use. All right, so that's odd, and we wanted to do something about it. And so I started working on this PR, which I'm going to show the content of a bit while ago, where I was saying, well, this is indeed a bug, and so what we really need to do is to delay the interpretation of the environment variable to a later stage so that the error message becomes clearer. And the way to do this is to remove the call to processing the environment variables from the init function, which runs unconditionally when the process starts and causes a panic if an error is encountered, and instead add the code to do the processing of environment variables in the main function as a regular function call and return an error and not panic when an error is encountered. So that is a functional change, and the reason why the PR is still a draft is because there is no unit test yet, and so we're not making changes in that area without suitable unit tests to accompany the change. So that's where we were with that PR. Additionally, I'm now seeing that there is a Bazel CI failure, which tells me that I probably need to polish that code a little bit. I'm also going to briefly look at my calendar to see if I have a follow-up appointment in a second. Yeah, I will have a follow-up appointment a bit later, but I'm not in a hurry. So this is a test that seems completely unrelated. And because it's unrelated, I'm going to consider this as a flake. I'm going to assume that one of the coworkers since a week ago has fixed that flake, rebase the branch. All right. That's one thing. And then we, see you, Rail. I didn't see that Rail was leaving the chat. Anyway. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to close those various files that we were working with earlier because that's not our project anymore. And we are going to move to the area of the code that we were changing. How do we know that each command advertises what environment variables it wants to know about accurately? Is it possible some commands forgot to put an mvar in their flag set? Okay. Possible that some commands forget to put an mvar. That's not possible because all the flags that have an environment declared will get through it. All right. Cool. So where is the code that is doing this? It's in cli.go. Let's see. Here, process mvar defaults. So let's rememorate. This was a little while ago, so we need to remember a little bit what the code is about. That is really odd. Why is this working this way? Should know. I probably wrote this many years ago, but it's kind of odd. Delay default initiation of setting covered by flag from the value of an environment variable. Oh my gosh. This is a complicated work. I wonder if I can make something simpler. What's the flag about? Notations. I like this, but I don't understand it. So why do I like this? So what's going on here is the following. I really don't like these envar defaults global variables. In general, we don't like global variables. So global variables are not nice and we need to get rid of them. So this is a really complicated logic here related to environment variables. So the flag name is this. And in an ideal world, we would store the flag inside the environment variable and its value inside the flag. I'm going to try this out just for fun. We are going to ignore this for a second. And we are going to, as in addition to this, we're going to say f.lookup of flag info.name annotations of set flag set name key set annotation. Okay. Cool. So what I'm doing here, separately from the code that was already there, I'm going to populate the environment variable name inside an annotation for set flag inside the flag set. And then we are going now to check this in this function. Can we iterate visits? Yes. And then do we have a get annotation? Oh, it's here. So I'm rebuilding. I'm basically now checking whether the mvar annotation is flowing properly from the point where the flags are declared to the point where the flags are parsed. Did not seem to be the case. Oh. Yep, got it. All right. So we can use the annotation fields for flowing information from one point to the other. So we can remove the global variable thanks to this. That's great. So we're going to try to do that, and we're going to briefly check whether the gen function is not broken as a result. Doesn't look like it. It looks like all this. Okay. So we can remove this. And we are going to work on this here in a second. So var annotation key is a map key used in pflag.flag instances to associate flags with a possible var. It can pick up a default from. So all this goes away. And then we're going to say var annotation key here. And then annotation is going to be here. Okay. And then it takes a value. And then otherwise this one applies. Okay. And now we have this logic instead. Cool. And we eliminated the global variable. Good riddance. So if we do a cockroach URL here, we'll have this. Okay. Is there an environment variable that would return an error as well? Cockroach user, cockroach insecure. Oh yeah, cockroach insecure. Yeah, okay. All right. This is better. So now we have our handling fixed. That looks better, but we're still not done with what we started with, which was to add a unit test somehow. What is this? Depth. Yeah, I suppose. Oh. Yep. Okay. What is this really depth doing? Let's see. Ah. All the command line variables are not being set properly here. Oh my gosh. All right. So mvar, it's actually useful to. I'm actually breaking this feature by doing this way. So let's actually look up the variable early. Here. Okay. And then now here we have a value. And that's a value. And we need to have, say value key as well. Oh. And we can do it. It's just one. Because we can have a string array here. Okay, good. So our name value is 0, 1. Cool. Cool. Now we can build this. And now here, this will list the URL again. Cool. And then we will get the same error as earlier, which is great. And how to test this properly? What is the best way to test this? We need an end-to-end test because the environment variables are picked up just once. All right. So that needs to be a SQL test. Test CLI no flag test flags. Yep. So that's one thing. Invalid URL. And then we are going to say okay. And now we're going to try our test. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120 seems to have succeeded. Yep, we got it. All right, and what would be really more useful is check that an environment variable that doesn't apply to one command is properly It's probably parsed for the command that it is affecting, not another command that is unrelated. And yeah, well, I think this test is doing it. I probably want to rebase this, right? Oh, it's already rebased. Nope, did not change files. All right, so this is now. Oh. All right, so that was our second PR for today. We started with this PR from an external contributor, and we added some fixes and improvements to that PR by appending 3 commits to their branch. And then when that work was finished, we went to this PR, which was open a week ago, but it was missing some unit testing. And then we further simplified the code to do the environment variable handling in a way that is simpler. And we have some additional issues that probably we'll be handling later today, but we have been 2 hours on stream already, and it has been 2 successful PRs, and I guess we're going to leave it at that for now, and we will see each other again next week. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being there. Have a great day.